Good afternoon, children. Welcome to your science class. Well, we already continuing the revision of your syllabus. In this week or from today onwards, we will revise the chapter, and that is synthetic fibers and fabric and plastics. Okay. So now let me tell you what is called fibers. You already learnt about fibers in your previous class. That is, fibers are filamentous or thread-like in structure that are woven into fabric. We can use fibers or we can use the fabrics in our daily life, in our everyday households, in the industries, in the medical purposes, in the chemical industries and so on. So fibers are very necessary substance or necessary commodity in our environment or in our daily life. So let's recapitulate this natural fibers. So what was the natural fiber? Natural fiber means the fiber that is opt from the natural sources, or natural source means the plant source or the animal source. A very common example of plant source natural fiber is jute. So from the jute plant we can obtain the jute natural fiber, and jute is used to make dresses, bags, upholstery, carpets, garments, and in case of industries and medical purposes. And we are very familiar with wool and silk. These two are the natural fibers obtained from the animal source. The animals found in case of hilly regions like Tibet, Ladakh, the Angora goats, the Kashmiri goats, the sheep, we can obtain the wool from those animals by rearing or culturing those and removing the hair or the body hairs from the animals, do not harming them, and in the industries they are dyed, colored and washed out properly, and it is released in the market for our use. So these are the wool. And what is silk? Silk is basically a luxurious and shiny, expensive, costly natural fiber that is obtained from the silkworm. And what is silkworm? Silkworm is an insect. Rearing or culturing of silkworm to produce the silk is termed as sericulture. You already learned about this, right? And so sericulture is used to obtain the silk from the silkworms. You already learned the procedures and all the necessary steps, right? So in this chapter, in this standard, 8th standard, we will study only about the synthetic fibers and obviously the plastics. In today's class, we will talk about the basic concepts of the synthetic fibers and of course the introduction and the only one synthetic fiber, that is known as rayon. Okay, so let's begin the class. The first concept is that is how a synthetic fiber is made artificially. Synthetic means something which is artificial or which is man-made and which is not natural. So synthetic fibers, the term indicates that the fiber that is not natural and of course truly artificial. So you have to learn how the artificial processes carries over to make an artificial synthetic fiber. Okay, here you have to learn three distinct terms. One is monomer, number two is polymer, and number three, the process is known as polymerization. You have to learn that mono means one and poly means so many. If we consider a bead in the necklace as a monomer and attaching the monomers into a string-like structure, that is considered as a polymer. Okay. If we consider the beads as a monomer, and if we attach the monomer in a linear fashion or some zigzag or cross-linked fashion, this will considered as a polymer. Poly means so many and mono means only one. So attaching so many monomers create a polymer. Okay. So these are the individual monomer, and attaching the monomer in a fashion or in a style together, this is termed as polymer. And the process through which monomers are attached in a fashion to make a polymer is called as polymerization. So polymerization is basically a process through which monomers are attached together to form the polymer. Okay. Monomers can be attached in the linear fashion, that means in straight line fashion, or in random cross-linked or zigzag fashion. That means these are interconnected or attached but in not linear fashion. So this fashion is termed as cross-linked. So polymerization can be of two types. Linear polymerization, and this is linear, and of course the cross-linked polymerization. In this case, look at the structure. This structure is more complex than this linear structure. So linear polymerization is basically a simple structure, and the cross-linked or zigzag polymerization is a very random and complex structure than the linear one. Understood, children? So let's talk about the first artificial fiber, and that is rayon. And why it is first in your book, and I am teaching you rayon in the first class. Why? Because the source of rayon is plant, I mean natural, but the procedure of obtaining the rayon from a plant is properly truly artificial. That's why rayon fiber is basically called as an intermediate fiber between the natural and the artificial one. Okay. So rayon at the intermediate, that means it has a origin of that is natural, and the process of obtaining the fiber from the plant or nature, that is truly artificial. Okay. So let's talk about the rayon. What I told you, the source is plant source. Okay, source is plant source. Be very specific, I should say. Plant cellulose. Cellulose is basically a plant fiber, and that we cannot digest it, but some grazer animals like cows, buffaloes, sheep, deer, they can digest the plant cellulose. So plant cellulose is also a natural plant fiber from which rayon is obtained. Rayon is a kind of silk finish artificial fiber. In case of silk, it is very expensive, not so much available, because to culture a silk or to culture a silk form, there is so many long-lasting products, and we use animal source, and we cannot kill all the silkworms throughout the world for yielding the silk. It is expensive, and it will hazard the atmosphere, hazard the nature balance if we kill all the silkworms in the nature. We cannot do this. So silk, obviously silk is very costly, expensive, and that's why rayon is invented. Rayon is a kind of silky structure. Look at the word, bright, lustrous and long lasting. It just like silk, very bright, shiny, lustrous, and just feeling silk. It is very comfortable to wear because it can absorb your body heat, body moisture. That's why it's very comfortable. So rayon is the perfect substitute of the silk, and rayon is very less expensive and can easily be dyed in various colors. So we can use rayon in our daily use garments and upholstery, or surgical instruments, or carpets, or making so many necessary things in our industries. We can definitely use rayons instead of silk. So rayon is a very important and obviously artificial. Textile engineers discovered the rayon artificial fiber from the plant source. So that is very important in nowadays. Okay. So I taught you rayon in the very first way, and rayon is present in your book in the number 1 synthetic fibers. That's why, because it is intermediate between the natural and synthetic fibers. In the next classes, the rest of the fibers, that is the purely synthetic, the source is synthetic and the procedure to obtain that is also very artificial. So that's a truly artificial. But rayon is the intermediate between natural and artificial. But we call it artificial. Why? Because the source is natural, okay. But the procedure to obtain the rayon from the plant is purely, truly artificial, synthetic. So we call the rayons as synthetic fibers. So children, this is the summarization. Monomers, a single bead attached together to form a polymer, and the process is called polymerization, and through this process we can obtain synthetic fibers. Examples of synthetic fibers, just like rayon, another examples are nylon, acrylic, polyester, Teflon, etc. We will study in the next classes. These are the truly synthetic fibers. And what is rayon? Rayon is the intermediate between the natural and synthetic fibers, that because it is plant source and the process is purely artificial. Rayons are very bright, luscious and long lasting, of course. It is very comfortable to wear, can easily be dyed in various colors, less expensive than the silk one, and it is used to make containers, dresses, surgical instruments, medical instruments, carpets, etc. So children, I hope this is very clear to you now. In the next class, I told you that I will teach about the rest of the synthetic fibers. Thank you.